Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Harriet, and this is CT Talks,
bringing you insightful virtual conversations
with the people of Caltrans.
In each episode, we'll dive into the world of transportation, sharing stories from the road and discussing the latest innovative projects happening at Caltrans.
If you're curious about what goes on at one of the largest state departments, join us as we explore all things Caltrans. Live and recorded.
Get ready to ask your questions in the chat.
Show support and emoji love.
Get ready to be inspired. Let's get started.
All right, you know what time it is. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this special Inside edition of CT Talks today. We've got a thrilling panel for you today to bring you some insights on our new strategic plan and giving us a deep dive into the goals of the new strategic plan. Thank you so much for being here. It's a special 1.5 hour episode. As a reminder, it is recorded and ready to roll for you guys as soon as that recording's ready if you have to step out. But my name's Harriet Simpson. I'm with the Division of Human Resources, and with me I have my wonderful co-host Laura.
Hello.
So let's jump into this. What everyone's here for is our awesome panel. So with us today, we've got Nick, Ashley, Nabila, Alice, and Kelly. Say hello, everyone.
Hello. Morning.
And as our little intro video said, please show up your emoji love whenever you feel inclined. We love to see it. We're all nervous up here, so we love to get the encouragement. So please throw up some love whenever you feel inclined. But with that, we will jump into giving you a little bit of an insight into our panelists. So I'm going to start with Nick Compin. So Dr. Nick Compin is the Chief of the Office of Air Quality and Climate Change at Caltrans headquarters in the Division of Transportation Planning. Over his 25-year career at Caltrans, he has held a variety of roles across districts, the Director's Office, the California Transportation Commission, and several key divisions. He is deeply involved in researching, piloting, and implementing advanced transportation technologies and strategies, and contributes to numerous national research efforts and committees. Nick is also an adjunct professor of transportation planning and project development, MTM 215, and emerging technologies for transportation systems management, MTM 297, for the Mineta Transportation Institute graduate program at San Jose State University. He holds a bachelor's in English from Chico State and both a master's in social ecology and a PhD in urban and regional planning from UC Irvine. Welcome, Nick. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, I'll kick it over to Laura to introduce Ashley.
All right, so next up, it's my pleasure to introduce Ashley McGukin. She's the Chief of the Division of Human Resources. Ashley began her career with Caltrans in 2007 as an analyst in the Office of Classification and Hiring after graduating from Sacramento State with a bachelor's in public relations. She has spent the last 17 years developing herself and learning the various disciplines within human resources. She values teamwork and creativity and strives to create an environment that encourages her team to think outside the box. She believes she believes that human resources has a unique role in helping the department to onboard, develop, and maintain a skilled workforce. As a proponent of continuous development and succession planning, Ashley inspires her team to create tools and resources to help cultivate future Caltrans leaders. Welcome, Ashley. Thanks for joining us.
All right, now it's my pleasure to introduce Nabila Abi-Rashed. So Nabila is the Deputy District Director for Asset, Program, and Project Management at Caltrans District 6, a role she has held since 2020. She oversees the District 6 capital program, ensuring alignment with asset performance targets, and leads a team managing 3 offices and delivering $500 million in capital projects annually. With over 26 years at Caltrans, she has held executive leadership roles at both district and statewide levels. A graduate of the California State University, Fresno, with a bachelor's in civil engineering, Nabila has extensive experience collaborating with local and regional partners, environmental agencies, CalSTA, and the CTC. She is also an active member of the Women in Transportation, WTS, SenCal chapter, where she she served 2 years as president, guiding the chapter to successful ratification. Welcome, Nabila. We're really excited to have you here today.
All right. Excuse me. I have the pleasure of introducing Alice. Alice joined Caltrans in 2019 and has held various roles in District 7 and headquarters, including project analyst in the Office of Surveys and federal program support analyst. She currently serves as the District 7's first equity program manager, leading initiatives focused on communication, education, training, analysis, reform, and community engagement to advance the district's equity goals. Originally from Cameroon, Alice later lived in France and England, where she earned an MSc in strategic business from the University of Portsmouth. She has lived in Southern California since 2010 and enjoys trail running, cooking, and traveling with her family. Welcome, Alice. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and last but certainly not least is Kelly Hutnick. So Kelly is a strategic management specialist in the Office of Strategic Management in Dawson, which is the Director's Office of Risk and Strategic Management, as part of the admin program here in headquarters Sacramento. She has worked in the Office of Strategic Management for 3.5 years, primarily as the point of contact for the Caltrans strategic plan. She strongly values the relationship she's built with colleagues across the state and leverages their expertise to make sure Caltrans is walking the walk with our vision, mission, core values, and goals. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kelly. We're really excited in the insights you're going to bring today.
You all so much.
All right. And with that, Kelly, I'm going to start with you with our first question. So why do we have a new strategic plan? We had one. What's the purpose of this new one?
Yeah, thank you. And if I could just take a few moments real quick to just thank you and the strategic communication team, Harriet, that worked on Goals Week with our office. The level at which you all elevate Goals Week is just truly wonderful, and we're so fortunate to have this internal expertise. So thank you all so much. You're looking at some of our beautiful backgrounds right now that your team worked on. But back to business. So why a new strategic plan? Well, we know that we accomplished a lot over the past 4 years in our previous 2020-2024 strategic plan, which you can see in the dashboard, which will be one of the links that we will be sharing. And we also, of course, recognize there's still a lot of work to be done, right? It's also not a stretch to say that the world has changed since 2020. How we do business continues to change. And as the world around us changes, our new strategic plan allows us to further align and define our priorities over the next 4 years. Also, our new 2024-2028 strategic plan now directly aligns with CalSTA's core 4 priorities, which are, of course, safety, equity, climate action, and economic prosperity. So you can really see that one-to-one mapping even in our backgrounds here. And ultimately, the strategic plan is another avenue for Caltrans to tell our story. This is where we're headed, and these are the things we're striving for and that are important to us. So the main takeaways for why a new strategic plan are: it allows us to align our priorities throughout the department, and it allows us to adapt to the changing world around us.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you for the insights there, Kelly. Anyone on our panel, do you want to weigh in on that? Why do you feel it's important for us to have a new strategic plan? Does anyone want to take that?
Sure, this is Nick. Yeah, I mean, you need a new strategic plan to, reflect, as Harriet mentioned, change. Right? Change happens. And we need to make sure that we go, whether it's from, whether it's a federal administration or state administrations or just our changing, environment and where we live, those things happen. Funding becomes available, funding goes away, all that kind of stuff. And so you've got to always take a look at it and revisit. And then, as a planner, you plan the work and work the plan.
Yeah, great message there, Nick. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Nabila.
I think also I was going to add, I think it's really good to go back and refresh and to really ask those questions of, did the old strategic management plan work for us? And what are the things that we need to work on to do better? What are our focus areas? What are the areas that we need to improve on? And what things worked? And so I think there's a lot of value in just taking a moment to pause and reflect and to refresh, celebrate the things that we did well, and really work and commit to doing better. So I think why a new strategic management plan, I think those are really important in moving forward.
Definitely.
May Harriet,
Please.
I think it's very important to understand and recognize that the world we live in is evolving. So now the community we serve and the workforce, we all have evolving needs. So it's very important as a public organization to adapt to change. So yeah.
Great point, Alice. Really nice. Yeah. If I may add, this strategic plan is really concise. So for those of you that haven't checked it out, it's 10 pages. So you can have a really nice brief read through. It makes it really easy to see yourself in the plan. So I really appreciate that. Kudos to whoever's a part of that, because really streamlining that makes it so much easier for all of us to digest and see our role in it, right? So really, really nice. Thank you everyone for your insights. Laura, I'll kick it to you for our next question. Oh, and I'm not hearing you, Laura. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, so thanks, Eric. For the next question, so what was it like being involved in the strategic plan development process? Was there anything that surprised any of you? Any challenges you want to speak on?
If I may, Laura, for me especially, it was very humbling. It was a very humbling experience having to sit down at the table with various divisions and reevaluate my role as a public servant. What is the impact of my everyday decision making on the community? Because believe it or not, we all have direct or indirect impact on the community we serve, and it was very humbling to see that exchange of idea and coming together to strategize. It was a positive outcome for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Alice. Anybody else want to share any of their experience about this?
Yeah, Eric, I mean, Laura, if I could, yeah, I mean, it was challenging. The process was lengthy. It took, I don't remember how many months, right? And we would meet, and then we ended up meeting like every other day or something. I mean, it gets to be a fog. I've been with the department for 25 years, so I've been through a lot of these, but, it was a long time. It took a lot of commitment from folks across the state, from every district, from every discipline. And so, one of the bigger challenges was, you start out with a bunch of different goals, and then everyone wants to fit every goal to every other goal. And sometimes they don't fit. And so that was, that was challenging because it's, maybe employee excellence doesn't necessarily fit with everything, or safety doesn't necessarily fit with everything. And so that was the big challenge, I think, was, hitting all the marks, but also focusing on the fundamental, which was, whichever goal area you were working in. And I was in the safety area, focusing on what are our goals in safety, and how do we, lay those out. Again, it's the goals and then the strategies, right? As I was telling somebody today, we started out with, storming, and there was a ton of boxes and, just kind of that nightmare of trying to bring everybody's ideas in from everywhere. And then, as your box left and got taken away, it was like, oh no, that idea is gone. Oh my gosh, but everybody really worked together really, really well, but it was challenging.
To Nick's, just some figures there. The strategic plan development process was an absolute massive undertaking that cross-cut the department. Over 150 subject matter experts gave their time. If you are on one goal team, that was at least 40 hours of your time spent. And we had people that were on multiple goal teams. So just imagine that, 150 staff giving over 300 hours of their time. And they didn't come checked out. They didn't come ready to disagree. They came with passion and pride and discussed things at such great of a length, you all, that they really wanted a plan that was not only concise, as you mentioned, Harriet, which kudos to those 150 folks for figuring not only that problem out, but something that really reflected the breadth and depth of this department.
Thank you, Kelly.
Sorry, Laura, if I could quickly jump in. I think Nick talked about, when your box gets removed through this brainstorming process, we had breakout rooms. So I think it was interesting. In a lot of them, you'd be apart from the bigger group and then come back and realize that there's very common themes, that we had diverse perspective from all districts and headquarters, but really, you started to see things kind of pop out as, okay, those are things that maybe we all can agree on. And so I think that's why this particular strategic plan is pretty concise, because it was like, oh, okay, we all can kind of agree on these things. So.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you all for sharing that. I think it's important, like you were mentioning, just your experiences, Alice was mentioning it was humbling, and then just the impact that it has, and just overcoming challenges that you all had to work together to put this plan together. It's really powerful. Thank you all. All right, Harriet, you're up next.
Couple of questions in the chat, so I'm going to touch on those. So someone's asked, how long did this process take from start to finish to produce the new plan? Does anyone want to take that? Kelly, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, as Nick said, it was a month. For our team, our Office of Strategic Management, which led this development, we were, a very small piece of this, but that started in roughly November. Did we reach out to look at the State Leadership Accountability Act's report, look at those risks. There's a little over 600 of them that the department identifies as risks, and that includes opportunities and threats. That includes executive board member interviews to get their themes, what they want to see in the strategic plan, multiple offsites with the executive board going forward, and then really those goal development teams, which all of these folks were on, that hit the ground running very fast, as Nick said. Sometimes meetings every other day, and those were long, easily 2-hour meetings every time.
Wow.
So roughly, and we made our timeline. I just do need to say that everybody made the timeline to launch on, forces outside of our control did delay it a little bit, but everyone here did what they needed to do to get that out by July 1. So easily, let's say 8 months or so of direct hard work by the folks, any other folks across the department.
That's a huge, can we just have a moment for that? Like, that's 8 months of a lot of work, a lot of involvement. You mentioned our executive staff, all of the panelists here today were a part of these goal teams. It's like everyone that's been a part of this, huge kudos to you, because this is showing our next direction. And as you all mentioned, we're adjusting, we're adapting, and it takes the voices of Caltrans to make that happen. So big kudos to you. 8 months of really hard work. Well done. Really well done. And here we're in Goals Week celebrating it. So here we are. I've got another question here, which feel free, anyone on the panel, to step into this. So can you please touch on how the strategic plan directly speaks towards our new generation of employees, so our newer generation? There's been a lot of them hired in the past few years. Does anyone want to speak on that, how it kind of speaks to the youth of our department, perhaps? Anyone on that one?
I was kind of thinking through, and the new strategic plan really kind of focuses people first. And so when you look at all the goals and that everybody has displayed, everything kind of goes back. It goes back to people. So when really talking to the new generation and the roles that everybody plays in this organization, it really goes back to their work and how it's making a difference in people's lives. And that their work and what they do every day, sitting at their desks, working on their computers, it is really making a difference. They're touching lives, they're improving lives, they're making a difference. So with the younger generation, this is their North Star. This is the purpose. And a lot of the younger generation is really looking for, what's my purpose? how do I make a difference in this world? And I think that's incredibly important in as we're talking to our peers and some of the newer generation within this organization.
Well said. Well said, Nabila. Thank you.
Thank you, Nabila. If I may, I really, really appreciate what Nabila said. And if you notice, employee excellence, I'm sure Ashley can attest to this, is new to the strategic plan. And it's something that was really refreshing to see, seeing that, the organization really took time to understand that the workforce is the core of our organization, without which none of what we do could be accomplished. So taking the time to sit down, strategize, come up with action items to target the workforce, us employee, and making sure that prosperity not only addresses the community but also put an emphasis on employee prosperity, on improving lives for us, so in turn we can make what we do 100 times better for the community. So
Very well said.
Nicely
Go for
said.
Ashley.
If I could add, she talked about employee excellence, and we had a previous goal of cultivating excellence, which I think was a lot of organizational, driven goals. And so to focus on the employee and really drill it down to our workforce, I think is super important. And our work is never done. So we're continuously trying to improve the resources we have for folks. But I think this newer generation likes to learn, on a flow basis. Maybe they're not waiting for this big seminar or something. So really trying to pivot. And we've been in an interesting environment for the last 5 years where a lot of this might be self-led or self-initiated. So having those resources online and available to people, I don't want to get too much into it, but our career development tools and things like that, where people can kind of help to navigate their career in a way that maybe they hadn't had access to in the past, I think is really something that we've wanted to focus on to empower the people themselves to sort of drive, where they're going in the future.
Definitely. And never, don't be shy. Plug whatever you want to plug here. The career development program is fantastic. So yeah, definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't. There's a couple questions here about the positive impact of having this new strategic plan on the fact that there's going to be coming back into the office for collaboration again. So no matter how people feel about the return to office order, it's important to share about this, right? Is that there's a new strategic plan and it's bringing us all together to collaborate. Does anyone want to touch on that question? Otherwise, I'll call on you.
You can call on us.
there we go. I think
talking because who was going to talk? Alice, go for it, and then I'll ask.
Thank you. As challenging as maybe the return to work order and how that correlates with our new strategic plan implementation, I see it as a positive. Being able to get back to cultivating that togetherness, the collaboration in person that we lost back in 2019. You have mixed feelings about this, but personally, this is my honest opinion. I think this will truly allow us to align the work that we do with the goals at hand, align our progress to the goal and really contextualize what we do based on the strategic plan being implemented. So, yeah.
Thank you, Alice. Nabila, I'm going to call on you.
Oh gosh. And we talked a little bit about this. I have been very, I guess I'll say, vocal in my excitement of this whole return to work. And the reason why is I grew up in a time at Caltrans where we were all in the office. And there was always a conversation over it'd be nice to telework. But the thing that I missed about when we all teleworked is the connection with people. Being able to walk around, talk to people, to collaborate, to learn, to ask basic questions, complicated questions, to get to know my peers and who they were as people. And so I'm really excited about the return to work and the opportunities that just you can't measure. That's just my perspective. I've been very open about that. So very, very excited about it.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. Nick or Ashley, do you guys want to chime in on this question?
Sorry. For me, it makes me think a bit more generally. RTO isn't the first, and it's not going to be the last decision that was made outside of this department that will directly affect this department. Caltrans will continue to do what Caltrans does best, and that's deliver, right? Whether it be projects, customer service, we can think about Clean California, Middle Mile, wildlife crossings, so many things, too many things to name. We will continue to face decisions and events that happen outside of this department and that are outside of our control, and we will continue our course to realize this thriving and connected California that doesn't cheat or stop our progress forward and what we're saying are our goals here. Those remain consistent. Those are not changing.
Excellent words, Kelly. Thank you.
I'll jump in.
Ashley,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Nick isn't. So I'm not quite maybe as excited as Nabila, but I do understand the importance of the collaboration. And it's an interesting thing in HR. I saw one of our liaisons from District 1, so shout out to Trisha, was reacting with the emojis. And I think what's interesting is a lot of the HR folks have not been teleworking. There's a lot of functions that we haven't been able to pivot to telework. And so I think that'll be good to bring, some of that synergy back with everyone together. But I think a lot of us have figured out ways to do our work differently. Hopefully that doesn't stop and we just continue to build on the things like this that we, manifested in the pandemic that now still will remain with us and be opportunities to just kind of expand and try different things. So maybe we have a forum like this, but in person, that would be a cool draw for people to, want to get together. So I'm trying to think about it creatively and obviously as optimistically as possible because, there are things outside of our control and it's sort of how we react to it that really sets us apart.
Well said, Ashley. Thank you. Nick, I'm going to give you an opportunity to chime in too.
Sure, just real quick. I think, and I think Nabila kind of started this, but that awareness of what's going on around you. On the private side, I always like to, as a manager, I like to walk around and talk to folks and see how you doing and a lot of stuff outside of work, right? Who are you? What are you doing? I'm interested, right? But also when it comes to work, when you're always on Zoom or whatever it happens to be, doesn't matter. The speaker speaks and everybody else kind of listens and then somebody else takes a turn and all that. And that sounds great. But when it comes to trying to figure out what are we doing as a department, what are different branches and different offices doing? I don't think we've gotten a really good picture of that. Even I myself, I come back in and I go, I don't really know what we're all doing here. And so getting an awareness of how other people's roles fit in with yours and taking the advantage of that synergy, if you will, to work together to say, okay, I wasn't focused on including that in whatever I was going to do, but I can fit it in because now I'm aware of it and I get it. So you can't replace face-to-face communication for that piece of it, right? I mean, think about having I teach courses, so if I'm on Zoom all the time, that's one thing. But if I'm in a class, I can call on different people specifically. I can talk to different people specifically who might, kind of hide most of the time. And their voice, I want to hear it, right? I want to know what they have to say. So I'm looking forward to that part too. Although 2 days a week seems to be working pretty good.
Yeah, mixed feelings across the board, right? But thank you all for your great insights. Definitely things to consider, especially those in the audience that are unsure or, not sure how to feel about it. Definitely seeing that alignment. And again, that kind of tenacity that Caltrans has to continue moving forward. So thank you all for taking that question. There's a couple questions about how the new strategic plan kind of affects our day-to-day operations. And Laura's next question kind of goes along with that. So I'm going to just kick it to Laura to share our prepped question.
Yeah, so thanks, Harriet. Yeah, going back to Kelly, if you could share with us a little bit more about how this new plan benefits the staff day to day.
Absolutely, thank you. And you know, folks have already touched on it in this panel. Our employee excellence goal is just that, to be extremely specific for a second. The outcomes that Caltrans is striving for in employee excellence are increased workforce satisfaction and pride, increased diversity at all levels that reflects the communities we serve, and a highly competent workforce. And these outcomes all have actions throughout the department, districts and HQ programs tied to them that they're working on to implement these outcomes. Just for a few examples, I did pull District 2, not to put District 2 in the hot seat, but they have some great examples of what they're working towards this fiscal year. Are fast tracking a program in field maintenance for development, a D2 employee engagement program, and further aligning roles, responsibilities, and expectations. So those are things already happening in the district, right, that are implementing this goal. So those are some specific benefits, but also to mention just some more general benefits. There's, of course, an increased sense of belonging as you can map to the strategic plan and the overall organizational direction, the overall increased sense of meaningful work, right? That passion and pride in the work itself and in public service. That general organizational awareness really can help your career progression when you're talking about even in interviews and just knowing where Caltrans is headed, know where we are currently, that type of awareness that Nick was talking about. And day to day in our work, the strategic plan goals can be used in references, as references in conversations with partners and the public. It's like, why is Caltrans doing XYZ? Well, it's because it supports our climate action goal, or because it gets us closer to achieving equity and things like that. So they can be used as justifications behind decisions and projects and things like that.
Thanks, Kelly. Anybody else want to touch on this? All right. Okay, so I have a question in the chat that I see here. I think a lot of the questions are coming over to Harriet, so I feel bad for Harriet's getting all the questions, but we have a question in here from Daniel saying, looking at the goals of collaboration and equity, many district offices are located hours away from communities we serve. How can employees advocate for establishing district office annexes to better serve and connect with more communities in our far-flung districts? Anybody want to take that one?
Yeah, I saw that, and I do. You know, again, I've been here a long time. We used to do a lot of traveling, right? We would go out, and at the time I was in forecasting and modeling, and so we were looking at the system and how it operated. And you would go out in the field, and take your, get a car, go out in the field, and travel and stop and eat there and take a look around and look at what travel patterns are. You would get folks, talk to folks that were there. So I don't know much about annexes and that kind of a thing. I have no idea whether that's even possible. But currently, I'm going to say, travel. It's really important to get out in the field and see what's going on. And then talk to the people who are out in the field every day, maintenance folks and folks like that, if you're working on the system, or you're planning folks if you're looking at different communities, right? Just rather than adding brick and mortar and throwing people all over, I think people should get used to traveling and taking the time to go out and figure out what you're doing in that far-flung piece of whatever district you're in.
Good points, Nick. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to add to this?
Nick, and when it comes to community engagement, for example, this is something big in equity. The fact, navigating 2 days a week and working from in the office and then 3 days a week at home, I want to say was a little challenging in terms of creating those opportunities to connect with the community, on different projects, on just meeting with the people face to face, making that connection and just building from that connection, because I want to empathize the importance of the face-to-face meeting. There is nothing like it, and prior to us being at home, we were able to do these things. And as we are really drilling into community engagement in every project, the expectation is for us to meet the community that we work with, the very people that we serve, putting a face to the name and let them know that we care and we are there. We're listening for them. And the way to do it is by being personally present, on those, on the field. So, yeah.
Great message, Alice. Anybody else have anything else to add here?
Yeah, I would also just say, I think Daniel hit on an interesting reckoning we're having with the core values that he mentioned in the chat, our goals and how these are coming into play in our day-to-day work in 2025, right? I don't think there's one answer. I think it's a continual assessment of what's the most effective way to communicate to insert stakeholder here, right? Internally, externally, as Alice was mentioning, getting out there, getting face-to-face with people is the most effective way she has found to engage with the public. Perhaps that's not the best way overall for every single stakeholder, right? So I think it's a continual conversation and assessment of how we can do our jobs the most effective way that we can, which means that's a lot of talking and a lot of thoughtful decision making, which of course means prep and planning and all of those things. But I think it's just that continual assessment.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Anybody else? All right, great messaging all around. Thank you. All right, Harry, do you have any other questions we want to pull from the chat? I don't have any on my end over here.
Yeah, I did put a reminder in there when you're sending your questions, send them to all panelists and then everyone will get to see. I'm getting a lot of messages privately, which is great. I just don't want to miss anybody. So if you send your questions to all panelists, everyone will get to see those. There's some kind of specific questions coming in regarding the goals, which is maybe getting a bit more into the technicalities. There are a couple questions on, it would be nice to see some examples of employees making the strategic plan part of their everyday work activities. I'm so glad you asked, Ramon, because if you haven't watched the video already that Blair Thompson sent out, the Office of Strategic Management, Strategic Communication and Strategic Management worked together to produce a video with Brianna Miller, who's the office chief over the Office of Strategic Management, giving you a bit of an insight into each goal, interviewing someone who was part of that goal team, and then diving into an example of how it's being put into play. So big shout out to Louis Dua on my team who put this together and everyone that was a part of this. It's a really beautiful video and it really takes you through and gives you an opportunity to learn more about how these goals are effectively being put into play in different projects. So definitely check that out. I believe it's on your strategic management website. So there's a link in the chat for that. But yeah, a couple questions about, let's see some examples. So I'll let you guys view the video and you'll get a great insight there. Let me see.
Yeah, just to add to that, Harry, I put some of the links in the chat. If you've missed any of those, just if you go back, you'll see I just added some more in there again on the assessment and other great links.
Awesome.
That the panelists have provided here.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, this is probably a great time. One of the links you just put in the chat, Laura, is our strategic plan overview request form. My office can provide strategic plan overviews to you and your staff to help make those connections to the strategic plan, to see themselves in the direction of the department and to have those conversations. You know, we've done presentations for 8 people, we've done presentations for 300 people. So it's really no too small or too big, anything like that. So if you fill out that request form, one of our team members can provide that overview and help make those connections.
Great, thank you, Kelly. There's a question here regarding any kind of tools. So this is a question from Jack. What tools the department has in place to measure how well we are utilizing the strategic plan within the divisions? And Kelly, I believe you said there was some sort of a tool coming out. I don't know if you wanted to plug that.
Right now, we have, for our previous 2020-2024 strategic plan, we have a Power BI dashboard, which also includes the fiscal year 23-24, formerly called Goals Worksheet. If anybody worked on that, that would also include those actions. So you can see the progress that was done. We are currently working on a dashboard for the current fiscal year 2024-25 strategic actions, as we're renaming this process. We also have, just as an element of the strategic plan, our jargony term for success metrics for target setting. Our jargony term for that is performance objectives. And so we have roughly about 30 performance objectives in this new strategic plan that aligns to all of our goals and all of the outcomes within the goals. And this performance objectives are really how we see that needle moving. We have safety performance objectives, of course, about fatalities and serious injuries. We have equity performance objectives. Some of those align to the great work that the Office of Civil Rights does as far as DVBEs and small businesses and things like that. It's really cross-cutting. We are trying to identify the best way to make those performance objectives as transparent and digestible as possible, like how to report on those in a non-static PDF document way. So we're working on that. But I believe, Harriet, you were alluding to the software tool that we are in the process of onboarding. We are hoping to onboard Asana soon, and we are hoping that to be kind of our one-stop shop for reporting on and communicating out the progress of the plan. So we will let folks know, but right now we do have that Power BI dashboard. And then if anybody else wants to have this conversation or wants more information, this is your information. This is all of our information, right? So please reach out to us at strategic.planning@dot.ca.gov, and we would be happy to share more information.
Thanks,
Awesome,
Kelly.
thank
And
you.
that email is also in the chats that I just put into in the chat as well.
I love it. I love the transparency of this data, how we're moving forward. Everyone can really, feel a part of it. So that's fantastic. Okay, there's a few more questions coming into the chat. I'm going to go back to one of our prepared questions. So what would you say to a staff member that may not see themselves in the plan? And how would you convince them that they play a huge part? So Kelly, I'm going to start with you. Not that we haven't been asking you all the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. The great news is, Harriet, that they are already contributing to the success of the strategic plan. So they're already doing it. They may not know it. How great is that? That could be directly or indirectly contributing. We have a ton of resources on our intranet site to help make those connections. Again, like I just mentioned in the form, to really identify, something I'm doing every single day is contributing to the success, does map to equity, does map to safety, and those things. I would also ask folks that maybe are having a tough time making those connections. Did they participate in Safety Awareness Week? Do they treat their colleagues as their colleagues want to be treated? Do you serve the public and align with improving lives and communities through transportation? If you do, I would assume yes to at least all of those, right? Or at least some. Then you are already helping us achieve our goals. The strategic plan goals are about people getting around safely by their choice of mode, with access to the same destinations in a thriving environment that's all stewarded by a skilled and engaged workforce. And we all play a part in that.
Love it. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you.
Well,
Nick, go
also,
ahead.
Yeah, it's your manager, right? Go to your manager and say, how do we fit in? And then if they don't know, they can go to their manager, right? That's our job, is to help employees understand how do they fit in? How does our office, our branches, how does it all fit into this, right? Now, we talked about challenges a little bit. When we did the strategic plan, I was focused on safety. Well, I'm climate change and air quality. So change happens. You got to be ready for it. And looking at the safety area, it's pretty obvious how we measure it, what our roles are. You have occupational illness and injuries. That's every day, at the job, at your home when you're teleworking, etc. And so, that's an easy one. I would say it's pretty simple to explain how you fit in. Some of the others, that's your challenge and mine in the climate area. Of course, that's a challenge now, but that's what your supervisors and their supervisors are for, to help you to understand. Even me, I go to my supervisor, how do I fit in? Hopefully they have a good answer. If they don't, well, maybe we need to go a little higher up, or maybe I need to, zigzag around a little bit. But that's, that way we all understand it. And that's our job too, right? To understand how we fit in and how our employees fit in and how the work that we do fits in.
Nicely said. Nicely said.
Coming from the project delivery side of the house. And so a lot of the work we do is, I'll call it a conveyor belt of projects that we're running through. It runs through environmental, it runs through right of way, it runs through design, there's project managers assigned to it, and then it goes to construction. And in talking with people, it is not about just checking a box and meeting the date. It's bigger than that, and really talking to them about how they fit in to that conveyor belt of work. The public meetings is engagement with the communities. Some of the projects that we put out, roundabouts, are really addressing safety. And every person that touches the project is moving the needle on the goals that we all are talking about today. It is moving those goals. It is putting people at the center of all our decision making. So kind of working that through and really connecting somebody sitting in their chair to the strategic management plan is how I view it and how we talk about it.
Love it. Thank you, Nabila. Ashley, I'm going to pick on you because representing employee excellence, I know there's a lot, the HR even puts out, just, biased because we're in HR, but I know there's a lot of programs people can be a part of to really help in support of employee excellence. I don't know if you want to touch on any of those.
Sure. Well, I was just thinking of the irony of us being in this forum right now is actually an outcome of a previous goal to try to align people with, understanding and context. So you and Laura, this has been on Harriet's vision board for like the last decade that I've known her, is really just wanting to make sure that she can help aid people with a platform to actually understand what other, folks within the department are doing. So this happens to be focused on the strategic plan. But if you look at the archive of different topics that they've gone through, it's really helped to understand and make that connection for people to really understand and see how they fit in. And you might think somebody from HR like Harriet or Laura wouldn't have, that passion to learn more about, like, let's say wildlife crossings, but actually getting to talk and immerse themselves with the folks who are actually doing the work is really insightful. And then the viewership keeps growing because people get inspired by, what others are doing and then how they fit into that. So that's just one example. Obviously, I could go on about the mentorship program or, like I said, career development, things that, make our folks have the ability to empower themselves, or like Nick said, talk to your supervisor, talk to a peer. There's always those relationships that you can form that would help you to understand that alignment and how you fit in. In HR, at one point, we had speakers come in from other divisions. I remember having the division chief for traffic operations, which doesn't seem like it's maybe necessarily a HR relevant topic, but we were talking about staffing the TMCs and actually, the fact that they're monitoring the traffic that is on the roadways that our families are driving on. So just finding different ways to make sure that people understand the impact of everything we do.
Nicely said, Ashley. Yeah, just finding those connections, right? And understanding your alignment with these goals. Yeah, thank you. And thank you. Yeah, no, we're really proud of CT Talks. And if you do go into the archive on our website, you'll see all the different topics that we touch on. We learn so much. So from our own pride in Goals Week and as being part of the goals, Laura and I learned so much meeting our panelists, you all included. We've learned so much. So thank you all for being a part of it. And thank you to the audience who continues to keep showing up and showing support and love. We really appreciate it. Before I move on from this question, Alice, did you want to chime in on how the goals affect people in their day-to-day, and if they're having struggles, what you would recommend?
And this is something really dear to my heart because when you look at each division across the board, whether you start from maintenance, for example, or the crew on the field that address issues that come in every day, those are the ones that truly impact the lives of the community. We get thousands and thousands of requests to, whether it's from graffiti removal or, homeless in common cleanup, things like that. So when you look at the bigger picture and you look at the work we do, it may seem small, but when you fit that into the puzzle, the impact is huge. It's huge. So every division is equally important. So I really want to, take this opportunity to applaud our crew on the field, from safety to maintenance to right away. All of them across the board are impacting, whether directly or indirectly. And those in the back of the house too. Those working on, the coming LA 28 games, doing a phenomenal job. And we want to, really drive that home and understand that it's not just about typing being behind a computer or at your desk, but it's about what you do and how the person who will receive that at the other end of the spectrum will be impacted. So thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
Hey, Harriet, sorry to jump in, but I see a
Yeah.
couple things in the chat from our
Yeah,
HR
please.
peeps, and I just want to address that. So Keisha Williams put in there, she works for our Learning and Development Office, just a shout out for the Essentials for Excellence program. And that is geared, I was actually in the pilot for that a million years ago, and that is geared towards, making our rank and file folks understand, what it takes to get into leadership, making those connections. She kind of outlines for you some of the different themes that, your folks could learn in those classes. Leveling up from that, you've got your supervisory development program, and then obviously our MTP and LTP program. So just building upon the understanding once you get that foundational piece. And so just shout out to LDO and all of the courses that they're doing. So those are available virtually, but then also some in person as well. So let us know what you want to see from our training team, but they're a wealth of resources. So it's a lot of stuff online that maybe you haven't clicked around to find. And then Trisha commented about the maintenance of the projects after they're actually delivered, and even making a connection from the training aspect. We partner with Meta to try to align and get them aware of how they can develop themselves as well. So we partner with Meta on their career development as well. So just different ways that we all connect that maybe aren't on the forefront or you maybe hadn't thought of. Now I'll stop talking because I talked too much.
Shameless plug.
Thanks for sharing that, Ash. I just saw that in there too, and I was just waiting too, and I saw Keisha's comment there. That was great.
No, that's great, because there's been a couple questions about how even districts can learn more about the strategic plan and the alignment. And there was a question regarding the trainings and kind of workshops that strategic management would do. And they're talking specifically District 1, getting out to, the more isolated districts. Is there anything that you could share there, Kelly, on how they can get some training on the goals and the strategic plan?
Our resources that we have available on our intranet are supervisor's communication guide, as Nick alluded to. Like, talk to your management, talk to your leadership, and they should be able to help you. And if not, we have a beautiful communication guide to help them along the way. If they want some of our internal services, they can definitely request an overview from one of the members of my office. Those are typically about an hour-ish. We want to make sure that there's enough time for those organic conversations to come up and questions to be answered and things like that. In previous, budget cycles, we did make our way up to District 1 and met with a couple of folks out in the field, specifically like maintenance managers and different areas like that. And it was wonderful. That's a huge plus for us, is to travel and is to make those connections. But of course, pivoting and making sure we're being good stewards of, our fiscal resources here. So we have moved to those being virtual, unless they're in Sacramento, then we can likely do those in person. Yeah, please reach out. We can also just do ad hoc conversations, whatever that looks like. Any member of this team and really this division is open to any conversations to help make those connections and answer questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you, Ashley, for sharing the resources that already exist too to help with alignment too. So loads of resources, loads of things you can touch on if you're interested in getting involved. So thank you. Keep your questions coming. I'm going to kick it back to Laura for our next prepared question.
Right, thanks, Harriet. So back to Kelly, can anybody at Caltrans be a part of the strategic plan's implementation, and how are some of the ways that the Caltrans team members can participate?
Yeah, I mean, we already touched on so many, but just to mention it again, just a few ways is, again, connecting the plan to you and your staff's day-to-day work is so vital so they can see themselves in this massive 23,000 strong department, which I am still 3.5 years in, still being amazed by, again, that breadth and depth of all that this department does. Recognizing when your team displays Caltrans's core values, right? You showed so much pride when you da-da-da-da-da, or you showed so much innovation when you da-da-da-da-da. Aligning projects to the Caltrans strategic plan, using it for justifications and efforts. Our office is also launching on May 1, so next week, the next fiscal year 2025-2026 strategic action planning process, which used to be called the Goals Worksheet. We have rebranded, trying to really simplify and communicate more effectively. This strategic action planning process is when districts and programs identify those big, bold, transformative actions that they can at least start in the next fiscal year in alignment with the strategic plan. So you should be, being tapped by your M designated managers, by your leadership, to brainstorm what are the cool ideas you have to get us to employee excellence. What are the awesome transformative ideas you have to get us to equity, right? There will be plenty of information to come about that strategic action planning process in a May 1 launch email from Mr. Aaron Ochoko, Deputy Director of the Admin Program. Part of that includes 101 trainings of what does strategic action planning even mean? How do I have these conversations with staff? We have a bunch of resources to help have those conversations. Job aids, of course, and always, always, always ad hoc support in any way possible for our team to support you all in this effort.
Thanks, Kelly, for that great reminder of all the resources available. Anybody else want to add to that? I think we've covered a lot of the resources there. Any other questions here in the chat, or would you like to go to the next question?
Let me see. There's a couple here. One's asking how Caltrans staff can kind of get involved and vote on what the goals would be, or how the entire Caltrans staff could be involved in that, or if that will be considered for future strategic plans. So kind of, I mean, I know there's been opportunities for people to have their voice heard, but Kelly, curious your thoughts on that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So to add a little more context of like the framework of the plan, how we got that skeleton was those executive board offsites that identified vision, mission, core values, and goals. Again, goals directly aligned to CALSA's core 4, and that was really important for us as a department to do. Once we got that framework, we did send out an employee survey on the strategic plan to get feedback on those core elements. Again, the vision, mission, core values, and goals. And we got feedback and we incorporated it. We used to have in the prior plan for 2020, 2024, that core value was called engagement. Staff shared with us that engagement the connotation of engagement is not as great perhaps as the connotation of the word collaboration. collaboration, I think, really communicates that two-way street, that involvement with the public, with external stakeholders or internal, right? That customer service lens. So we made that switch. So that core value is now collaboration. We also had in the mission was just initially improving lives and communities, period, full stop. Employees spoke, they let their voices be heard, that they had a hard time connecting with that. They had a hard time seeing themselves in that mission. So we added the words through transportation. So right now it's improving lives and communities through transportation. And that was from direct feedback from the employees. I would say again, just to throw out those numbers, over 150 subject matter experts and staff did let their voices be heard in the further fleshing out of the strategic plan, that outcomes, strategies, actions, performance objectives, as the wonderful folks on this call were a part of, over 40 hours of their time. Those folks were elected by executive board members to be on those goal development teams. But of course, anytime you have any questions or want to have more information or anything like that, you can always feel free to reach out to us. You can feel free to reach out to your management and leadership to have those conversations. Absolutely.
Thank you, Kelly. Great reminder. Don't ignore those emails, everyone, especially when there's surveys coming out. This is, our want to hear from you. There was a whole campaign for strategic management towards the end of last year about you spoke, we listened. What did we hear from you? How are we implementing those changes? So, participating in the surveys, having conversations, as Kelly said, with your management, with your peers, and if management are, management supervisors on the line, having those conversations with your staff, helping them to understand, I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. How do you feel about this? So utilize Kelly and her team, really, really all the workshops they're running and all the resources that exist, really educating ourselves and having these conversations. That's what it's all about, right? So thank you, Kelly. Keep your questions coming. I'm going to go back to our questions for a second. So I'm going to start with you, Alice. Can you share a moment of pride that you had during the development process?
Oh, yeah, this is a very good question, Harriet. And I want to say a moment of pride, being able to have the deeper conversation with the steering committee. And the steering committee here was, composed of district directors, head of divisions, and really having that time to sit and talk and exchange of idea and having them value our subject matter expertise was truly amazing to see. So, the fact that I was able to bring back, the feedback to my district, to my direct supervisor, and then from there collaborate with my peers on next working session, and that constant feedback, traveling, shuffling of information, and seeing that the steering committee was truly paying attention to what we were saying. That was a proud moment for me. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Alice. Yeah, I'm glad you had some moments of pride hearing from those experts and really getting everyone together, showing that commitment, right? That's awesome. Nick, same question to you. A moment of pride that you experienced during that development phase.
So obviously I was in the safety area, and so fitting in non-safety related goals was challenging, right? I mentioned that before. But during our breakouts, it was really cool. We had some folks there from, I think, District 6, District 7, 11, and maybe 2. Because sometimes our breakouts, at least for safety, it wasn't like 50 people. It was like, 6 of us or something. Because nobody wants to be an expert specifically in safety, I guess. I don't know. But, we got in there. We had some other folks that joined in from some of the other goal areas. And so, we did have some lively discussions about what's the fundamental purpose of safety, and, how do we, fit in some of the other goals if possible, right? If it's not possible, then we said, geez, I just don't see how we can do that, right? But the folks in the districts, the experts that were there, There was a gentleman there from I believe maintenance in District 6. And his examples, from the Fresno area was really enlightening for folks who came from the Bay Area or District 7, right? Because the context is everything when we're dealing with, just about anything we're doing, projects or approaches to, public outreach, etc. It's different just about everywhere you go. If you're in Modoc County, that's just way different than LA, right? And so, understanding, what those differences are, and then having the people that came, they absolutely contributed and explained why is this a different context, and if we do this specific goal or strategy or whatever, how do we get included, right? You're leaving us out, or how do we make it more inclusive in terms of this is for the entire state and all of Caltrans, not just our big districts, right? So that was I thought that was great, because it helped us to come to some really fundamental goals. And I think without fundamental goals that you can track, that your performance measures, that you can track your progress. And again, safety is easy because it's fatalities and serious injuries, right? That we've tracked that for 50 years. So that's not the hard part, but coming in on the other goals, some of them, it's really difficult to determine whether or not you're making progress. So, again, in our area, they just, folks stepped up on the, who were part of the team, and then in the breakouts. And I thought that was wonderful, right?
Love it. Great insights. Thank you, Nick. Love the inclusion that you mentioned there too, just making sure everyone's voice was heard. Really love it. Nabila, same question to you. Did you have any proud moments during that development portion?
Should be a pro at unmuting, and I'm not quite there yet. I think my experiences were very similar to Nick, and just really and Alice, and really that prideful moment where you recognize and see everybody's voice is being heard. It's important for everybody to give their perspective, and everybody listening and hearing, and having those deep conversations, and not being afraid to really talk about what's important to each individual person. And so having that environment, being able to foster that environment and supporting each other really was, that gave me pride. It really made me happy to see that connection. And then not only that, but being able to share our ideas and our thoughts with the steering committee, and them really hearing what we had to say and what was important to us, and being interested. It isn't just words, it was a lot of questions and being able to really understand. So I think the strategic management plan and the goals really is about everybody's input. So I that's what gave me pride.
Love it. Thank you, Nabila. Love that there's that people element that really makes you proud. That's fantastic. Ashley, same question to you. Any moments of pride that you want to share?
Pride and deflection, because I'm in HR where, for a lot of the employee excellence goals, everybody wanted to, have HR do a bunch of different things. And I felt pride in knowing that the majority of those things we're already working on are already things that we also think are important for the department, and being able to depart from, I have an interesting role where we've got, pay, benefits, hiring, all these core HR things that we have to focus on, but also giving space for the things that are more strategic and interesting and, uplifting for the department that are still also super important. So I think focusing on this stuff, and then hearing, oh, it would be cool if we had a career development program. Oh, we have that. Oh, it'd be cool if you aligned in our, Essentials for Excellence leadership program. Oh, we do that. And so I felt pride in just being able to educate even some of my peers on, what resources we do have. So the whole thing was both prideful and also a lot in that particular goal.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, big kudos to HR. I know we don't always get the positive light shined on, so it's nice to hear that HR was already doing a lot of good things. And so thank you for emphasizing that, Ashley. That's awesome. Kelly, from the facilitation standpoint of this, did you have any moments of pride? I mean, you were facilitating, getting all these people together, being involved in those conversations. Do you have any insights you want to share?
Of course. I do just want to jargon check for a second, and just like, help explain for folks. As we're saying steering committee, the steering committees were made up of executive board members that signed up for which 1 or 2 or 3 goals they wanted to like chair, co-chair, and be members of. And so once the goal development teams fleshed out actions, fleshed out perhaps performance objectives that they brainstorm and propose, they would then go back and present that to the steering committees, those executive board members, on the equity goal, on the safety goal. So that's that back and forth that folks on the panel are referring to, is that direct involvement by the executive board. Of course, that's made up of district directors and deputy directors, and all the time they spent on investing in the strategic plan. But just to get to your actual question, Harriet, of course, all the passion and pride, as I've already mentioned, and folks right now I've just mentioned, of all of really the team, the Caltrans like family showing up and putting in the work for the strategic plan. I also found it so interesting for folks grappling with our brand new goal, which is prosperity. As folks began to identify all the ways in which Caltrans affects people's everyday lives, it can be, honestly, it's kind of overwhelming. I'll speak for myself when we really start to think about how much the transportation network and beyond really affects every single Californian's lives, really affects all life, including animals, right? Really affects the traveling public's lives. This was a really interesting conversation to be a part of. And just for a couple of more contextual, like specific examples, the prosperity goal is about improving quality of life. It's about improving multimodal access to destinations, improving freight mobility, the expanded transportation sector employment, which kind of maps to, as Nick was saying, they kind of can map to each other, map to employee excellence, and improve asset condition and reliability. So we really had to hone in on those conversations because it kept getting larger and larger and larger of all the things Caltrans could really do. Being part of those conversations was incredibly enlightening, and I learned so much about this department.
Thank you for sharing, Kelly, and thank you for the jargon breakdown there too. That was very helpful. If anyone has any questions on anything's being talked about, throw it in the chat. Kelly will get you. I'm seeing a lot of. Go ahead, Laura.
I was going to share a comment in the chat from David, just saying that this panel is a fantastic representation for the department specific to the Goals Week, and thank you so much. Nice comment. Thank you, David.
Really nice. Thank you, David. Yeah, there's a lot of positive kudos coming through that they're really enjoying this. Is helping them to understand better how the goals align. So really nice job. There is a question here about the individual development plan and the career development plan, and what's the ideal way for someone to go about advancing their career. Ashley, I don't know if you want to touch on that, or we can shoot this individual. Rosie will shoot you over to the career development experts, and they can really help you out. But did you want to touch on that, Ashley?
Yeah, I was going to do both because I know we're running short on time, so I don't want to keep everyone, but we do have an amazing career development page. So if you're aware of the plan, then you already know that there's resources there that are kind of self-led. But what I really find cool is that we are the leading, I think, department in all of the state of California with our career development plan and our career counselors. So we have multiple career counselors whose job it is to help you kind of navigate that process. They will work through assessments so you can understand, what you align with and where you could see yourself going. Previously, we'd have on our website career ladders, and it would be a linear, I am an AGPA, and then my next step is an SSM1, and it would just be very, specific. And now we're understanding that people have desire to kind of move around, maybe laterally or into a different job. I myself rotated within HR at the same level for 6 years, but in different roles, understanding a little bit more context. So I think, look, you can multitask. I was afraid you were going to call on me if I looked for the website, but I think just having that organic conversation might lead to something further that is maybe even more than just a career development plan and resources that you can access. So we invite anyone to reach out to us no matter what level you're at. They are trained. I know our office chief over that office, Sulema, has her master's specifically in career development, and this was something, and counseling, and this is something that she sort of had wanted since she was an AGPA, and it's really grown. And so I'm really proud of that team and what they can do to help others. We get really positive feedback. They'll do mock interviews with you. They'll assist or put you in touch with the recruitment side of the house if you don't know how to actually take the exam or apply. So again, I'll stop plugging that team, but there's a multitude of resources. And sometimes instead of, trying to do it on your own, just talking to someone might be the best bet.
Thank you, Ashley.
Add to that,
Please.
I am a true witness to that, to the career development plan. I have used that resources. I started in state service as an AGPA, and that tool has been significant in just being able to have that awareness, knowing who to talk to. And kudos, shout out to Zulema. She is amazing. And I just wanted to say, please, 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 whoever is listening, take a look at that resource. It's amazing, the breadth of, it's bottomless in terms of information. Please.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for sharing your success story too. Yeah, huge fan of Sulema and her entire team. Even if you're curious, go check it out. Go check it out. It doesn't even have to be for looking for a different career role or advancement or anything. Just excelling in yourself. We're a lifelong learner culture here at Caltrans, right? So definitely check it out. Have those conversations. Share with your peers for those that don't know about it. It's definitely a fantastic resource. So thank you all. We are looking at our 15-minute countdown. So we're going to get to our next question. So Laura, I'll kick that over to you.
All right. So Ashley, this next one is for you. So many of the new 2024-28 goals are similar to the goals from our 2020 to 2024 strategic plan. So how do you believe our new goals align priorities and expand on work that we began in the last strategic plan?
Yeah, well, I talked about the cultivate excellence kind of evolving into employee excellence. And so I think we built the foundation in the last plan, developing a lot of resources, and now we're sort of refining those. An example that comes to mind is we had talked a lot about surveys and listening to our folks and what actually resonates with them. So as a part of the last strategic plan, we implemented doing onboarding surveys, asking people, even in our ad postings, how they heard about us so that we can understand. And actually the best recruitment tool that we have is all of you. So word of mouth, we found out, is the most effective way. So really making sure you all know where we're at. You can go to our talent acquisition page and see, it's not just HR going out to these events, it's all of the districts and their participation and involvement within the different districts and communities that actually are leveraged. And so I think that was great feedback. Now we're expanding upon that and going to initiate life cycle surveys so that we have people who maybe have been here a little bit longer. Okay, what are you looking for, for us to develop? And so not just the new folks, not just those who have been here for a long time, but, in between, how are you feeling after 5 years? How are you feeling after 10 years? So we're able to run reports and see how long someone is tenured and then specifically reach out to them for feedback. And we are working right now on doing different dashboards. So I know a lot of things people want to ask HR about are exit survey information and, maybe feedback about why people departed. And so we'll be creating dashboards that actually break down the different demographics, whether it's age or gender or, all sorts of different tenure with the department, why people are departing us, what sentiments they want to leave with us. So it's the whole life cycle. It's the beginning, it's the middle, it's the end. And so that's one example of something where we started it with the last plan and then carry over. And I think we can all agree employee excellence is never fully achieved. There's always going to be more we can strive for. So whether it's a risk or an opportunity or a threat, I think Kelly talked about earlier, it's all of those. And so just we're never going to be out of work in terms of trying to focus on that. And I think just continuously, leveling up and doing more will be what we focus on this time.
Thanks, Ashley. Well said. Anybody else want to add to that quickly? Because we're counting down on time, or
if you do a strategic plan and everything's different the next year, then you weren't focusing on the fundamentals, right? So that's a good thing that we haven't taken a left turn. We're a big organization. We've been around a long time and there's a lot of moving parts. And if we're not all in line with fundamentally what are we doing here, I would say that's a management issue, right? And so that's a good thing. And tweaking is great. Adding some things, that's great. but fundamentally changing everything you do. They've done that to us, and that's not so great, right? So, I think we knew we were building on what we already had, and adding in some new things. So I think that was part of the plan.
Great points, Nick. Thanks for adding that. All right, so I'm going to hand it back over to you, Harriet.
All right, so as we got 10 minutes left, get your questions in while you can. You can also reach out to these lovely individuals if the need arises outside of this episode too for any questions. But my next question is, what goal do you all most identify with? You've all got your beautiful backgrounds up. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to share that if anyone did not see it in the awesome email that was sent out from the strategic management team earlier this week or on Monday, just wanted to share this with you. If you haven't seen it, is the goals assessment. And so this was actually produced by our team members. And it's a really fun interactive assessment on taking you through how your work aligns with each of the goals. So if you haven't had a chance to jump in and get your assessment done, please do it. I think it's about 30 questions. As Safety Sam's here saying, you're almost done. Okay, 25 questions. Then it will calculate your result. You'll be able to go through each of these goals and identify where, what information there is for you to learn more about. It links to some LinkedIn Learning modules to really help you better align, learn more about that goal. And so it really provides you a good idea of how your work is impacting the department and the strategic plan. So wanted to share that quickly for those that hadn't had enough chance. And if you're in the chat and you've already taken this assessment, please throw your goal that you most aligned with, or any of your goals that you most aligned with, in the chat. We'd love to hear from you on what was really resonating for you. If you've taken the assessment, or if you just personally wanted to share, we'd love to hear from you. And then if you see at the end, you can download your virtual background to really represent that goal this week. But we did have our panelists take this goal assessment prior to our event today. And so here you can see that everyone aligned kind of differently with their top goals that showed up. Nabila is just going for the most points and going across the board. Do you want to explain that, Nabila? How come you're on every single goal? Explain.
Laughed at it, and when I took the test, I didn't score. I scored a lot on, I guess, a lot of the work that I do in project delivery really hits all these different goals. And like I said earlier, every goal is intertwined and it goes back to people. A lot of the work that I do really goes back to that. So I had a difficult time with this slide, but that's my work. That's what project delivery is. That's what capital delivery is. That's what we do. It's all these elements for the greater good.
Well said. Really love that. Yeah, I mean, no shame in it. If you identify with all these goals, I feel like everyone can to some degree. So definitely great to show it, be proud of it. As you said, your work aligns with all of them and it all contributes. Nick, do you want to explain yourself on your selected goals of safety and climate action?
I mean, obviously, when you take this, it's asking you, where do you align? And I think we do all align on each one of these to a large extent, right? But I kind of pulled it back and said most. And this is I think in the vein of, change happens. When I was part of the team, I was the safety lead for planning at headquarters. It's still in my office, but my office has expanded, I would say, to include air quality and climate change. And so, it's what I was on the team for, and then what am I doing now? And so, be ready for that change. I've worked in traffic operations, the director's office, CTC, you name it, districts, etc. Caltrans is a place for mobility that you don't get in a lot of places. And it's, the opportunity to go, well, geez, I always wanted to be an engineer, but I didn't go to engineering school. Can I do that? And the answer is yes. Right? There's ways to do these things. And so that flexibility of movement is great, but it's also flexibility of knowledge and what you're doing. And so, just looking at it from wherever you are, how do you fit in? That's important. And so that's why I've got a couple of them that are, a little bit different, right? Safety and climate action.
Thank you for sharing your insights there, Nick. Yeah, definitely love the change, love the adaptability, and yeah, as you said, it's kind of moving along with what you're doing, and it all aligns. So yeah, very well said. Alice, would you like to share any insights on your most aligned goals?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity. Equity, why? Because it accounts for individual inequalities, not just providing access to the same resources. We could have access to the same resources, but not be actually able to utilize those resources to benefit us. So, in my previous role as the equity program manager for the district, that really resonated with me. And as Nick mentioned earlier, now that I've moved away from the equity role, I still see that the work that I do also play, a bigger part in prosperity. Why? Because, the ability to elevate the quality of life, not just for the community we serve, but for the workforce also. And so having to play both role really gave me that complete sense of completeness, I would say, excuse the terminology. So it gives me that sense of I've been able to experience both ends of the spectrum and seeing back then in equity, and then now that I get to work with the public more and with the staff within the district. So that's exactly how I feel, having to jump from equity to prosperity, and not ashamed of it.
Love
Thank you.
it. Ashley, would you like to explain your goal selection as well?
HR is going to be employee focused, and so I had employee excellence, but I also had equity embedded in my work as well. And so I think just finding ways that, let's say, your day-to-day operations don't have something necessarily inherently in it, finding those opportunities to make a way, to make space. We talked a lot about Sulema and her supervisor Tom Hicks just yesterday were at a tribal summit in Northern California, meeting with the tribal leadership to talk about how they can actually help people to learn how to get jobs with us. What would they like doing? And so I think meeting people where they're at. Now that team is down in LA working on our prison to employment initiative. So, you might not necessarily see the intersection of some of these things, but it's really, I think, the team all hit on it, affecting multiple. And yeah, if you see something that you think could align your work, go for it, move forward and just pitch something. I think most supervisors are looking for people to explain to them, how they can do their work better. So speak up.
Speak up. What a message. Love it. Love it. Kelly, lastly, did you want to share on your goal alignment?
So much. For me, it's our equity goal. When our office provides the strategic plan overviews to other Caltrans staff, we engage in these conversations and these connections. And equity is one of those goals that, interestingly enough, some people may immediately see that word or read that word and don't think that they relate to it or can connect to it. And through those conversations, we're able to give examples and really discuss how every day they are likely practicing equity. They may not just call it that. Some everyday examples, as a department statewide, a state employee, examples are like pay transparency, inclusive hiring practices, implicit bias training, accessible workspaces, right? We may not look at a accessible door or something like that as this screaming example of equity, but it is, and now it's a normalized example of equity. Our office also conducts the Caltrans employee survey. And in response to the first statement of the survey, which is, I would recommend Caltrans as a great place to work, staff consistently refer to the people of Caltrans as a reason why they would recommend Caltrans as a great place to work. And I don't think it's a huge stretch to expand on that and assume that there must be a sense of belonging there. There must be a sense of feeling included there. And when we're talking about Caltrans family, when we're talking about Caltrans pride, we're talking about feeling like we belong. And we're talking about feeling like we feel included. We are a part of something. And all of those are interconnected, and they're huge parts of the people first culture that we're all striving for.
Thank you for sharing, Kelly. Really appreciate it. And great reminders there of that people first approach. So yeah, if you have not yet taken the goals assessment and you're curious about your alignment, go ahead and take that assessment. It's there for you. Do it during goals week for bonus points, just for your own pat on the back, and really help to continue those discussions and continue educating. I know we're up on time. Laura, were there any questions you saw in the chat? If you want to.
I'm sorry. I don't think I have any more on my end over here.
Yeah,
But
no worries.
I do want to do a plug for the next episode before
Yes.
the rest of our audience has to leave for the day. But our next episode is episode 18, and we're going to be featuring the Caltrans Avalanche Control Team. Really exciting episode coming up. There's 8 avalanche specialists statewide with Caltrans, so very unique team. We're going to have some dynamic footage and photos that they're going to be sharing about all the important work that they're doing to keep our roads safe in the challenging mountain terrain. So if you haven't done so already, the link is in the chat. I'll throw it in there one more time to register for that next episode.
Thanks, Laura. And finally, thank you so much to our panelists. You all have been fantastic today, sharing incredible insights. So huge applause to you. The chat, the audience are going wild with the applause. So take that all in. You're superstars this morning. Thank you so much for bringing these diverse perspectives. Thank you so much for our audience for being so participatory. We love to hear your questions. We had another 3-4 questions prepared. We didn't even need to get to those because you guys asked so many questions. So we love when that happens. We want it to be led by you, these conversations. So thank you so much for being so involved and engaged. Thank you again to all of our wonderful panelists for being here. Thank you to the strategic management team putting this on for Goals Week. It's been great to partner with you guys. We've really had a lot of fun. And as Laura said, if you're interested, please sign up for our May episode. Talk about aligning a lot of our goals with our avalanche control team. Safety is on the top of their list. Employee excellence, prosperity, you name it, they're doing it. So definitely, if you want to rep your own goals, go register for the next episode. It's gonna be a really, really cool one. If you have suggestions for topics you'd like to hear on, obviously we had a really diverse panel here today. If you want to learn a bit more about them, or if you want to nominate them to be on another panel, contact us. The information's on the screen, dhr.communications@dot.ca.gov. And then once this closes, you will have a very quick feedback survey. If you could please take a minute to fill in your feedback survey. We want to continue bringing you the best CT Talks episodes that we can. So we can't do that without hearing from you. And it seems like that's kind of been a resonating theme throughout this entire episode, is you got to voice your opinion, whether you're talking about the goals, talking about the plan, sharing your feedback. That's what it's all about. So be a part of that now, and part of employee excellence, so we can bring you better episodes. With that, go and enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you so much for being here with us for this special 1.5 hour long episode. Thank you again. Thank you, Laura. Always so much fun to do these with you. Really appreciate everyone's love and support. And with that, talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.